In the worst case scenarios where you're, wrestling over a gun or you're defending against a knife attack inside a car, even if you're highly trained, those situations are still a gamble at best. And this is why the most important skill you can have isn't really how to win those kinds of fights, but how to prevent them from happening in the first place. And the system for this is actually called managing unknown contacts. And it's a strategy for controlling the space between you and a stranger by maintaining verbal boundaries and moving sideways and keeping an upper body defense whenever they get close. Now, most criminal attacks happen in a couple of ways. First, there's the total ambush where you're blindsided and you never saw it coming. And unfortunately, there's not much you can do immediately. They happen too quickly. So, all you can do is act as fast as you can and make sure that you have preventative measures. You keep self-defense tools with you all the time. Self-defense, or you have the situational awareness. You know where you're going. You know where your escape routes are. That sort of thing. But more often than not, people usually do see a threat escalating in a situation, but the problem is when they don't recognize it. So it's there in front of their eyes. There's something happening, but they don't recognize the cues. So they assume the attacker is harmless, and then they get lured in by some made-up nonsense, some narrative, and before getting attacked or robbed. So let's get into the method here. When a stranger approaches you in a sketchy place, for example, or out at night or in an alleyway, the first thing is to make sure that they stop at a safe distance. It could be at a gas station. And most of the time people do, right? And that's your indicator that they're less of a threat. And where they stop is usually conversational distance. So let's talk about this distance here. The conversational distance is, on average, it's your wingspan. It's about a meter away. And the thing about conversational distance, this is actually, the maximum point that you want a stranger to get to you, especially if you suspect that they're a threat. Because the studies show, actually, there's basically almost no chance of defending yourself against a sudden attack if somebody's at conversational distance. And what I mean by wingspan is, it's another word for just can they reach you, right? Can you reach them by doing this? Can they reach you at this distance? So because at that distance, whoever reacts first in a situation or takes action first is in a position of power. The human reaction is not fast enough usually if they're not suspecting something to react. And even if you are suspecting something, even if someone would just tell you, I'm going to touch your chest at some point, and you have to be ready for it and defend that, you won't be able to. So human reaction time is too slow. So that distance needs to be at the maximum, the conversational distance, or a little bit further away. You want to maintain that. The next thing is verbal boundaries, and there are a couple levels to this, right? There are soft verbal boundaries. So as soon as somebody comes your way, and if they don't stop around conversational distance, then immediately you need to give them a soft verbal boundary. You can just say, can you just stay there for a second and we can have a conversation. You can say, just stay there and I can help you. Or can you stay there for a second? It could be a non-threatening request. Can you stay there for a second? It can just be a command in this harmless way. Just stay there and we can have a conversation. And, you shouldn't really engage with strangers if they're coming too close. They shouldn't be. So you shouldn't engage with them if they do, and you shouldn't let them come into your way because it's too risky. The next thing are hard verbal boundaries. So it's communicating the need for distance, right? If someone is, threatening to you, if they seem off or strange, and they come your way, what's really strange is somebody who keeps approaching you, who keeps coming closer and closer. And sometimes that happens. Sometimes we have weirdos who, like druggies, who are coming closer and closer, and they just have a very strange body language, right? And in other cases, other people are coming closer and we don't know why. At that point, when you sense a threat, you need to, and the person keeps approaching, you need to be more direct. And the standard way is to shout at them, get back, very firmly and very loudly. Shout, get back, or back off. And it's supposed to create this jarring effect. It should be very jarring and wake the person up. It should be that loud, right? And clear. And this will get anyone staying where they are if they weren't trying to be a threat in the first place. So it's intimidating, and it's also intimidating to attackers too. Now, if you swear a lot, then swearing is fine, but it shouldn't be personal, because you're trying to de-escalate a situation here. You're trying to avoid a problem. So you don't want the swearing to be personally aimed at them. Personal insults, insulting them. General swearing, like saying the F word, is fine, right? But the next thing is, if they're not really listening to you, or if you don't use that word, they come too close and you feel like maybe they're not that much of a threat. So you don't feel like shouting at them like that, and you're not too sure if they're a threat, then you can just, you can practice something called, the next step is this physical movement of arching and fencing. I put these together. So arching is just more or less the same thing as sidestepping. It's not exactly sidestepping where you shuffle in a certain specific way, but you're stepping to the side. And that's the most important thing when you're in a fight or you're facing these threats, whether it's one person or a small group of people. You don't want to back away from things because you can't see where you're going. You can trip when you're backing away. You could hit a wall, right? You could hit a dead end to some extent. It could be a wall of a building or the wall of an alleyway, which is even worse. That's the classic trapped in an alleyway situation. So you want to sidestep. You want to step always to the side, right? If someone keeps getting close, you step to the right or to the left. You just keep stepping to the side. That way, because this is another strength to this is that you can keep your eyes on the target and still see where you're going. You're using your peripheral to see where you're going and if there are any possible threats behind you. You don't want to look completely away from them behind you to see if there's somebody there or if there's something there, right? You need to keep your eyes on the threat at all times. That's why you need to sidestep, so you can see. If you sidestep, let's say, for example, or let's go this way, then if the threat is here, I still see the threat facing them. Facing this way, I still see them in my peripheral, but I also see what's beside me, what was originally behind me. So always moving in this way, I can see everything. And then there's fencing. And in fact, one of the first things you can do actually is when you establish the soft boundaries as they're coming closer to this conversational zone, you can do something like this. You can say, hey there, what can I help you with? What do you need? And as they approach a little bit too close, then you say, hey, just stay right there and we can have a conversation. Or can you just stay right there, and we can handle this? I can help you, whatever it is, right? Just stay right there. Can you just stay right there? Just like that. And you have your hands like this or like this, or if you're standing, for example, you would just have them, much higher than your waist or your hips. You want them at least up around your torso. You keep like this, right? Whatever feels natural. But as you're doing that, because we're in the stage of having crossed the conversational wingspan, or that boundary, if they keep being strange and weird and threatening, then of course you're going to need to be like this, more of a fighting stance, right? Always keeping them very close to your face. And or you could be out like this, or kind of sideways, which is just ready for anything, right? Ready for fighting, for self-defense, for blocks. That is the maximum of self-defense, because if the threat rises any more than that, then all of a sudden you're in a fight at this point. So these are all the preventative steps of maintaining distance so that you can prevent these conflicts from escalating in the first place. And if you ask many people who train with this system, they'll say that most of the situations, even 99% of potential conflicts out there, will be prevented just by keeping your distance from people. So that's why this is so important to know. So of course, when I break it down like this, there are many details to remember, and the last thing you want is to try to remember something that's actually very simple, and get completely frozen, and ideas of which order it is, and when to say something, and when to do this thing, and when to use your self-defense, when to raise your voice. So what's really good is to just practice this with a partner in your self-defense practice, or in the gym that you go to for training and learning martial arts. And at the very least, if you're not practicing it with a partner, then just go over the steps one by one very carefully, and have a very thorough understanding of the soft verbal communication, and when to establish the direct hard verbal communication, when to start doing things like fencing and arching. Make that, once it's very clear, then it'll come automatically, and with your common sense, you'll know what to do.